This evening we're going to do a flow, some yoga practice with some warming up, some folding, maybe some extension, a little bit of arm balance, and a little bit of more active work before we move into releasing and breathing. So for today we're going to start on the mat from a seated posture, any way that's comfortable, but first we're going to come onto our hands and our knees. Feeling that our fingers are spread wide and that the tops of our feet are against the ground. Take a few moments in this posture to notice the breathing. Noticing where it is. Feeling the knees below the hips and the shoulders above the wrists. We can start with some scapular retraction and protraction, where we're squeezing the backs of our shoulder blades together, pressing down with the chest, and then pressing up through the hands. We'll do this a few times while we're breathing. Pushing up against the ground with your hands, and then pressing your chest towards the ground, bringing the backs of your shoulder blades, your back muscles together. Noticing the breathing, noticing the movement in our rotator cuff area, in our shoulder muscles. And now let's move back our hips towards our heels and extending our arms out, pressing the forward down towards the ground. Taking a few breaths here. With each breath, we might feel our chest sinking more deeply towards the ground. On an inhale, coming back up to the hands and knees posture, a tabletop posture, and we'll move through some cat-cow pose. Tucking in the hip bones and rounding back on the exhale. Inhaling, raising the lower back all the way up, expanding the chest and raising the head. Exhaling, curling from the back, rounding. Inhaling, opening, pressing our chest down towards the ground. As we're doing this movement, we're bringing some awareness and warmth in the body, and also working the spine. When we're pressing away, we're letting the chest sink towards the ground. We're engaging the muscles around the chest area, including the serratus anterior, which is often a muscle that needs to be worked more. You might notice that you're feeling warmer with each movement. And then when you're ready, you can rest back into child's pose again. The heels and hips meeting, forehead to the mat. Taking a few breaths in child's pose. Noticing any difference in sensation? Let's look towards our flat hands and pressing up towards tabletop again, but this time we're going to lower, bending the elbows and bringing our chest towards the mat. Exhaling all the way down to the ground. Inhaling with the tops of our feet flat against the mat and raising our chest just a little bit. Exhaling, releasing down to the mat. Inhaling, pressing up against the ground and moving back to child's pose again. Taking an inhale, looking up towards the hands, moving forward and lowering down, chest towards the ground again. Resting on the ground, inhaling, raising up from the chest, and exhaling, lowering, pressing back into child's posture. Or Balasana is the other name for child's pose. I'll do this a couple more times, inhaling at your own pace, exhaling, lowering, inhaling, raising up, exhaling, lowering. Taking a breath, exhaling and pushing back into resting pose, the child's pose. Inhaling, lowering down, warming up with this mini flow. Working our arms, being aware of our breathing. This time inhaling, coming up to tabletop and stepping both feet forward between the hands, moving into a forward fold. Our knees can be bent as much as needed, and then slowly rolling up to standing. Our feet about hip width apart, and our shoulders kind of in line with the hips and the ears. Feeling that mountain posture, Tadasana in Sanskrit. Feeling the top of the head reach up, and the corners of our feet, like the edges around the feet, awareness of that sensation. Let's do a few forward folds here. Inhaling, raising the arms toward the sky, and exhaling, folding forward from the hips. Taking an inhale with a flat back and raising up, returning to mountain pose. Taking a breath, inhaling, raising the arms, exhaling and folding forward. Inhaling with a flat back and raising back up to standing. We'll do this move a couple more times. Inhaling, raising the arms, exhaling, folding. Inhale with a flat back and raising and standing. Taking a breath, inhaling, raising the arms, exhaling, folding forward from the hips. Inhaling with flat back, and then returning to mountain posture, Tadasana. From here, we've noticed that we probably warmed up the body a bit. And we'll move into some sun salutations, or a vinyasa. It's a sequence of kind of the start of the yoga practice, the asana practice, which is the physical part of yoga that we're doing. So taking an exhale, when we're ready, inhaling, raising our arms towards the sky, and exhaling, folding forward. Taking an inhale, this time with a flat back, remaining here and Stepping back, exhaling with both feet into a plank posture. From here, we can lower our knees to the ground and lower down just like we did before, chest towards the mat. Inhaling, raising the chest up a bit. And exhaling, we can press back. This is a modified sun salutation into child's posture. Looking up towards the hands, stepping both feet again between the hands, raising to a flat back, and returning to standing. We'll do one more on the other side, stepping back with the other leg first. Inhaling, reaching up, exhaling, folding forward. Noticing our hinging from the hips. Inhaling with a flat back, and stepping back with the other foot, and then both the other foots. Now we find ourselves in plank, lowering the knees, exhaling, lowering the body. Inhaling, raising the chest. Exhaling, pressing back into child's posture. Taking a breath and looking up toward the hands, stepping forward and folding as we're standing. Inhaling, raising up to mountain posture. This time we'll move into more of a full vinyasa, or we can keep the same option of going for our knees and child's pose. Inhaling, raising the arms towards the sky. Exhaling, folding forward. Inhaling, raising with a flat back and stepping back with both legs into plank. From here we can lower the knees again, or just lower the entire body into chaturanga, crocodile posture. Inhaling, moving into upward facing dog. And exhaling, stepping back into downward facing dog, placing the feet and pressing back from the shoulders and the hands. We'll stay here for a few breaths, noticing where we are. Gaze up towards between the knees or the navel. Let's step forward, both feet between the hands. Taking an inhale, flat back, and exhaling, folding. Inhaling, raising to standing into mountain posture. Now we'll do another vinyasa. Inhaling, raising the arms up, and exhaling, folding. Taking an inhale with a flat back, and stepping back with the other leg first until we're in plank with both legs. Exhaling, lowering. Inhaling up into upward facing dog. And then stepping back into the downward facing dog. Pressing back. Hips moving up towards the sky. This time let's bring our knees towards the mat, so we're on our hands and knees again. So we've finished our standing postures for this practice. Let's move into some core type exercises. Of course, yoga is not a mere exercise, but it's definitely good for your core as well. We'll start with the one arm, one leg balance, where we're inhaling and extending one arm, and then extending the opposite leg. You could also just extend one leg or just one arm at a time, whichever is more to meet your needs. Exhaling and releasing, and we're breathing as we're holding these postures. Usually we inhale or we can exhale or inhale actually, as we're extending the arms and the leg. And noticing our core strength as we're pressing the arm and the foot and the hand away. And exhaling, placing our hands and our knee back towards the mat. We're going to do this again on each side. Inhaling, extending the arm and the leg on the other side for a few breaths. Exhaling, releasing. Taking a break if needed. And then extending both opposite arm and leg on the other sides. And releasing. I'll try a little more challenging version. This is that's one variation. Bringing ourselves back into child's pose, and we'll move into downward facing dog. You have the option to rest in child's pose at any time. To try the opposite knee to opposite elbow variation from downward facing dog. We can release one hand from the ground and one leg and bring the knee and elbow together. Pressing back into downward facing dog. We might find ourselves in plank as we're moving the opposite knee to opposite elbow. And then pressing back into downward facing dog. We'll do this one more time on each side. Bringing the opposite knee to opposite elbow. And then pressing back into downward facing dog. Opposite knee to opposite elbow. And then pressing back. Returning to child's pose. Lowering the knees to the ground. And resting the forehead on the mat. Noticing how we've warmed up here. Taking a few breaths. And let's move into an arm balance pose, a crow posture. We're going to see that our hands are kind of in line with our hips. Coming up into somewhat of a squat type position, bringing our feet in line with our hands, and our knees against the backs of the upper arm here, against the triceps. Now, I'm not going to really go fully into this pose, but to start, we can place the knees against the triceps and just allow our body weight to sink forward towards the hands. We'll just experiment with what that feels like for a few moments. There we go. And we can also lift one foot from the mat at a time as we're pressing against the triceps. So one of the things we can do is lift both feet off and balance. However, we can start with lifting just one foot off at a time. Try lifting the one foot or the other foot. And here, before we try lifting both feet off the ground, balancing in the arm posture, we're going to also look up and ahead with our nose. Because if we have our head down like this and trying to balance, we'll fall this way into the mat. So we have to actually extend our necks forward as we're moving into this balance posture for crow pose. I'll demonstrate. Just a little bit of arm balance here. It's a little slippery clothing. But your knees would press against the triceps here. Let's return back to the tabletop posture after you've experimented with a few rounds, noticing strength in the arm balance posture. I'll move into some extension type movements. Let's lower our entire body down to the ground. Our hands beside our chest, and then bringing the arms beside the body. As we move into locust pose, taking an inhale, looking up, raising the legs together, squeezing the backs of the shoulder blade again, and raising up, extending the entire body back. Breathing for a few moments here, and exhaling, releasing down to the mat. We'll do this a few more times, moving into locust pose, inhaling, raising up, extending from the glutes and the top of the back muscles. Breathing as we're here. And exhaling, release. It's important to work these opposite muscles, opposite to the front side of the body, because oftentimes we are in a flexed or seated type posture and become very tight in the front of the body. We need to extend back to strengthen the back muscles as well. Inhaling, raising up again into locust. Exhaling. We'll do one more time. Releasing everything. Inhaling and pressing back through the glutes, the upper back, the triceps, the lats. And exhaling, releasing down, bringing the hands beside our chest and pressing back into child's pose. From here, we can raise to a seated posture to end with some resting breathing, or we could swing our legs around to the front, or however we'd like to get there safely, and then find ourselves on the mat. Giving a little massage perhaps, rolling. We're extending the arms beside the body and the legs apart. The crown of the head reaching up, resting and feeling the top, the back of the head against the ground. I'll set up the guide through some resting pose. As an option, remaining in resting pose, lying down on the ground. Feeling the back of the head touching the mat, feeling the elbows and the hands resting, the shoulders resting back against the ground, all the way down to the lower back and the hip bones, sacrum. Feeling the backs of the heels also against the ground, noticing our knees all the way up to our hips. Everything sinking down into the ground. Noticing the heart rate if you can notice the heart rate. In some cases, we might have worked a little harder, or this might have been a very not as, not enough to raise the heart rate. Bringing awareness in the body, we'll remain here for a few minutes. Breathing deeply. Now, bringing back some awareness, returning into the environment. Perhaps moving the body a bit, and then opening the eyes. Taking a breath, if you find ourselves in the resting pose on the ground, coming to a seated posture. Noticing any lightness or any kind of space we can visualize being within the body now. Maybe mentally, if we have more awareness of space, so to speak. We'll bring our hands together as traditional Namaste.